A very good morning to my students of class 6. Today I shall begin with a new chapter, chapter 20, that is active and passive voice. Active and passive voice. Children, when you try to say something, or the way or the method in which you express yourself is a voice. So simply voice means the way in which you say something is a voice. So before discussing what exactly is active and passive voice, let us have a look at the examples given here on the board. Let us look at the first example. The boy kicked the ball. The ball was kicked by the boy. So in these two sentences, you'll find that these two, they try to convey the same message. They are trying to say the same thing, but the voice is different. Look at the second example. Ram ate an apple. An apple was eaten by Ram. So these two sentences, they try to say the same thing. Ram ate an apple. An apple was eaten by Ram. So these two sentences, they convey the same message and they are saying the same thing, but the voice is different. So the first one is said to be children, an active voice, and the second one is said to be passive voice. Active and passive. Now again children, look at the first example. The boy kicked the ball. So children, here in this example, the boy is the subject. The boy is the subject, and the subject here is performing an action. Subject here is the doer of the action. Here subject is the boy. So what action did he perform? Kicked the ball. So when the subject is the doer or performs an action, it is said to be an active voice. I repeat, when the subject is the doer or he performs an action, it is said to be an active voice. Whereas, look at the second example. The ball was kicked by the boy. That means here, the subject is not the doer, but in fact, the subject receives the action. So, the subject which receives the action is said to be in passive voice. Look at this example. Ram ate an apple. Ram is the subject and he has performed an action, ate an apple. Ram ate an apple. So the subject Ram here is an active voice because the subject is the doer or the performer. Whereas an apple was eaten by Ram. So here Ram does not perform the action, but in fact he receives the action. So when the subject becomes the receiver, it is said to be a passive voice. Yes, when the subject is not the doer of the action, that sentence is said to be in the passive voice. So this is the active and passive voice. So just to recapitulate children, in the active voice, the subject is the doer, the subject performs the action, and in the passive voice, the subject is not the doer, but in fact it receives the action. And children, there are 3 golden rules to differentiate and find out which one is active and which one is passive voice. There are, children, basically 3 golden rules. 3 golden rules to find out which one is which one is active and which one is passive. So first one, to find out the active and passive voice, first one you need to learn is the rule of X. Rule of X. That means, for that I'll give you one example. The hunter killed the lion. The hunter killed the lion. The lion was killed by the hunter. So look at this example. The hunter kills the lion. So the hunter subject is performing an action, kills the lion. So this is said to be in active voice. So the lion was killed by the hunter. So here when the hunter subject, it becomes the receiver, it is a passive voice. So first one is active voice and the second one is passive voice. And how to find it out? First one, as I told you, figure out the rule of X. In active voice, first you have subject, then towards the end you have object. First you have subject and object. But whereas in passive voice, subject goes here and object comes here. So this is the rule of X. The place of subject and object, they are exchanged. In the active voice, the subject comes towards the beginning and ends with the object. Whereas in passive voice, remember children, first comes the object, towards the end comes the subject. So this is the rule of X. Subject first comes in the active voice and object, and just the vice versa of it. You will find object first and subject going towards the end and subject taking the last position in the passive voice. This is the first one, rule of X. And children, secondly, remember that in the passive voice, you use helping verb. Helping verb in passive voice. In the passive voice, you use auxiliary verb or helping verb such as is, are, was, were. Those are helping or auxiliary verbs. So you use those kind of verb in passive voice. For example, the lion was killed by the hunter. Was is an auxiliary verb. An apple was eaten by Ram. Was is an auxiliary verb. So second case, you use auxiliary verb or helping verb like is, was, are, were in passive voice. And the final one, children, in the passive voice, you use the word by. In the third case, the word by is used in the passive voice. The hunter kills the lion is an active voice. The lion was killed by the hunter. So by is used in the passive voice. So in your examination, wherever you are asked to identify active voice and passive voice, you need to remember these three golden rules in your mind. First one, the rule of X, where there is an interchange of subject and object. And in the second case, you find the use of auxiliary or helping verb in the passive voice. And in the third case, remember the use of the word by. The word by is every time used in the passive voice. So children, this is the very end of active and passive voice, and this is a basic and simple explanation of this topic. So further discussion of this topic shall continue ahead in the teachment class, and if you have any doubts and queries, that can be sorted out in the classroom, in the online classroom. So this much for today. We shall move ahead with the next topic in the next class. Thank you very much.